Welcome to our webinar, Mastering Modern Sourcing, the Path to Enhanced Supply Chain Visibility and Cost Management. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Aaron Simon. I'm the head of marketing at Part Analytics, and I will be staying off camera today to conserve internet bandwidth and mitigate any technical issues that might come up. I'm excited to be here and introduce our expert panelists as they share and discuss their experiences, their analysis, and strategies regarding digitally transforming direct material sourcing and supply chain management, among other related things today. Two quick notes before we begin. We will be running an open Q&A session during the last 10 to 15 minutes of the webinar, though if you have questions, please do submit them using the Q&A chat, and I will monitor and address them as needed. Also, we'll be sending out links to access this webinar's recording after the session to all of our attendees. So now I'll quickly introduce our panelists, starting with Richard Gardner, our moderator, Senior Director of Advisory Market Intelligence Management at the Hackett Group. We also have Terry Schneider, Senior Vice President of Supply Chain Management at Digi International, and Jesil Pujara, co-founder and head of product at Part Analytics. Each one of them will share a little more in-depth introduction shortly, but for now, I will turn it over to our moderator, Richard Gardner, to lead the discussion. Take it away, Rick.
Thank you very much, Aaron. As mentioned, my name is Rick Gardner. I'm a senior director at the Hackett Group. I'm part of our market intelligence practice. Been with Hackett over 20 plus years, so my background has been both on our transformation side, where we implement solutions, select solutions, help companies through their transformation roadmap. So I've gotten to see a number of companies take some of the transformation journeys that we're going to talk about today. Currently, my role is really focused on the vendor space and the procurement and supply chain area. So really excited to be here today and part of this discussion. I'd like to hand over to Terry Schneider to introduce himself as well.
Yeah, I'm Terry Schneider. I'm the Senior Vice President of Supply Chain at Digi. I have a lot of experience in supply chain operations and management roles over the last, I'm going to date myself, but it's over since the mid 80s. I've been in operational and supply chain using many different types of systems, all the ERPs, all the PLM systems I've been involved with, and I'm looking forward to discussing Part Analytics and what they have done for us today. So I'll leave it at that, and I will turn it over to Jesil to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Hi, everyone. I'm Jesil Pujara. I lead all things related to product at Part Analytics. My background is mechanical engineering. I've done 10 plus years doing hardware design development, both at Schneider Electric and then at GE Healthcare, working very closely with sourcing teams over time. So looking forward to our discussion today.
Excellent. Thank you both. Aaron, if you want to move to the next slide. So just in terms of today's agenda, we're going to get into really the focus and the meat of the discussion is going to be around kind of Digi's transformation story. As an introduction, we'll just talk a little bit about what the Hackett Group sees from their key issue study in terms of some of the supply chain priorities that we hear from our client members that were really the focus for 2024. And then the bulk of the time, we will talk about how Digi really did go about transforming their sourcing processes. You know, we'll start with a little bit about their organization. We'll hear some of the challenges that they faced. We'll talk about the solutions they look to deploy and leverage off of Jesil's expertise in terms of technology and capabilities. What were some of the results that came out of the overall transformation? And then really, what are some of the key takeaways? What learnings and findings can the listeners from today's discussion take away in terms of where they might want to think next? As Aaron mentioned, the Q&A is open forum. I know Terry does have a hard stop at the top of the hour, so we'll make sure we keep to that schedule, but please feel free to address questions into the chat, as Aaron mentioned. So as mentioned, just as an introduction, each year the Hackett does what we call our key issue study. We do one for supply chain, another one for procurement, for IT, HR, and finance as well. And we ask executives a number of questions, everything from what do they see as key risks to what are their top priorities, to what technologies are they looking at investing in or executing on, and really what projects or initiatives they're focusing on. What we see, if you kind of take a look at a number of these key priorities, today's discussion is going to hit on at least 5 or maybe more of the top priorities that we see across our member platform. Digi's activities, focused on improving the cost efficiency of their supply chain processes, helping them get better visibility, better product availability, agility for their teams, and really able to, we'll call it modernize and digitize their platform to improve their capabilities in servicing their customers. So today's discussion, I think, ties very well into what we see in terms of last year's, or at least the 2024 priorities. We are in the process of actually collecting the 2025 key issue study. So look for that next year when that comes out for release. So with that, let me transition and hand over to Terry to talk a little bit about Digi, the company and business, and start off our conversation.
Okay, thanks, Richard. I want to give a little background of Digi, who Digi is first, and how we're structured, just so it's a framework for the discussions that we'll have a little bit later on here. Digi's been around since 1985. We've been machine-to-machine communications is where we got started, and we still do that today. It just changed from M2M to machine-to-machine to IoT now, and now we're an industrial IoT company. We still do that today. We are a hardware-enabled, software-defined company. We pivoted. We have 2 business segments. The solution segment, which is made up of primarily acquisitions, which is our Ventus Technology Group, which focuses on financial markets as well as gaming markets. And then we also have a SmartSense group, and that group does temperature and humidity monitoring for pharmacies, most of the pharmacies in the U.S. for medications, and also food services at grocery stores. We monitor food temperatures, so food spoils, we can take action immediately. Both of those 2 businesses that are in the solutions business segment are 100% recurring revenue business model. The historical products and services business segment is made up of 4 business units. One's our Open Gear business unit, which we acquired about 5 years ago. That business is console servers, and they manage networks inside of mega data centers or private data centers. In addition to that, we have a business in the products and services segment called OEM Solutions. They sell, so we design and market both wireless technologies, Zigbee, 802.15, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth type modules, and sell those to other customers. We also have inside that OEM business unit, we also have a embedded product. So we make SOMs that go into other people's products, primarily on the communication side on the SOMs. Like we're in a lot of infusion pumps, we're in defibrillators, those type of product lines. So we make products that go into other people's products. And then we also have a legacy business called infrastructure management that does a lot of telematics. They're in that space. They're also in medical products, port servers, serial servers. That is older technology, but a lot of companies still buy that technology from Digi. And then finally, inside the products and services segment, there's a cellular router business unit that we sell to mass transit, Wi-Fi on buses, traffic control, all those type of solutions. The reason why I'm bringing this up is it's super important that the audience understands that it's, even though we're relatively small in revenue, it's a highly complex business. There's 6 businesses inside of this company, and it's highly complex. We have design centers literally all over the world, in Brisbane, Australia, Logroño, Spain. So it's a highly complex environment. So I wanted to give a framework for what that looks like as we get into more of how we're one, getting visibility for part availability as well as for cost savings. Good segue here on this slide. This is my organization, and what we did is two major things that we did. We started outsourcing about 6 years ago, and we outsource a lot of things, a lot of our product lines to EMS providers, or in some cases we use ODMs, JDMs to do some designs for us, and then we put our software on there and market them. But in this effort, we had to create. We were more tactical purchasing at the time. So what I came in and we looked at and tried to figure out was how can we be more proactive, and how can we use a better organization to get what we want done in the time frame that we want it done in. So we established this organization, outsourcing EMS management. We have a group inside this organization that manages that activity, right? Contract management with EMS providers. Strategic sourcing group is more commodity management focused. So we have a cross-functional group that help manage all the activities. We have over 12,000 parts in our organization that we contract with. Typically design awards get done through strategic sourcing, as well as the engineering groups and the respective business units. But this group helps support. My whole group is a global team, right? They help support all 6 business units. So it's super important that we're engaging with the engineering talents inside of Digi all over the world, for that matter, making recommendations on supply, using the right tools. I think one of the key things that we found during COVID was that one of the challenges that we had was part availability during COVID semiconductor crisis, and Part Analytics came to us and developed a tool that really helped us solve problems. My team was going out. So just to give you a framework, before COVID and right now, we only have like 4 shortages across 12,000 parts, right? During COVID, it jumped up to over 145 shortages. We needed a tool, so my team wasn't scouring the internet, trying to find brokers, trying to find these things, asking if they had them in stock. Part Analytics developed this tool called Part Availability, which really streamlined this process and really helped us find parts with automation. And then they would ping us and say, this part's in stock at this location. And my team, sometimes it was late in the night, get an auto-generated email, they go in and purchase those parts immediately. One, it saved us PPV. We had less PPV, but more importantly, we satisfy our customers' demand and our customers' requirements. So that piece of it was a super important factor into ensuring that we could satisfy our customers' requirements during COVID. In fact, if you look at our revenue and our financials going back in time, we're publicly traded, as you saw on the first slide. We were one of the few companies that grew during COVID, and a lot of there's a team effort with engineering, redesigning a lot of products, but finding parts was one of the largest challenges in my career. I've been in this space for 35 years. It was one of the biggest challenges I've ever seen, right? And without a tool like this Part Availability, we would have not been nowhere near as successful as we were. So I give Part Analytics and Jesil, they listened to us, they came back to a solution very quickly, and they and then they delivered on it. So I'll save the rest here, Richard, because it's just the rest of this. We have 3 manufacturing sites, the 3 fulfillment manufacturing sites. The only other thing I'll comment on is the global planning team. So we have global, and that was your number 2 bullet point, Richard, at Hackett, is S&OP. That is super critical. So we have a global planning team with 2 to 3 people, between 1 and 3 people, depending on the business unit, that is dialed in to each business unit, and they help plan inventory, they help plan demand and supply planning, and line that up with our S&OPs. So we have 6 of them every month, and we go through those S&OP processes and figure out what to order and what not to order. And we have to plan out. Right now, during COVID, we had to plan out 2 years in advance. Thus, we had inventory challenges after COVID, and then subsequently we were able to, and then after the inventory challenges were up, then we had inventory issues ourselves because everyone had piles of inventory, and now we're starting to burn all that stuff down. But
So Terry, excellent example just in terms of, the agility that you had to respond to COVID with some of the new technologies. But, hopefully we never have to deal with COVID again, but it could be weather impacts. It could be local disruptions. There's a lot of other things. Hopefully not COVID part 2. We'll all hope.
100% agree, Richard. You just don't know what's happening, and worldwide too. There's a worldwide issues, all of global impacts that affect all kinds of supply chain, potential supply chain risk, and mitigating those risks are super important.
That is, I think, a perfect opportunity now to just launch one poll here. So in this poll, attendees, you can rank about supply chain challenges. So you can rank your supply chain challenges in order of priority. So just take a moment, consider the ones that kind of impact your organization the most, and just rank them as you see fit. I will launch it right now. We'll give you a full minute to decide, and poll is launched. And once complete, we'll take a look at some of the results and kind of discuss how those challenges are aligning with Digi's challenges and challenges that we're seeing in the market at large. Answers are coming in. Go give the audience another 10 seconds, make their final decisions. All right, we'll end the poll now. We can share these results real quick. Now, panelists, are you able to see these results, or do you need me to?
Yeah, no, they're popping up, Aaron, and it looks like, at least in terms of priority 1, if I'm reading it right, manual processes, quote, Excel hell. Looks like it was the leader just by a hair, maybe over supply chain disruptions. Although spend visibility may have been maybe the second priority, at least probably close to supply chain disruptions as well. So
yeah.
I can comment a little bit on how we overcame the Excel and all the manual processes. We use a lot of tools at Digi. We have many different tools. We do have a IT steering committee that I sit on with the executives, and we have to have ROIs on these tools. A lot of tools we were using other tools, but we weren't using them efficiently. So we did a deep dive into, in this case, our engineering database. We used a ton of spreadsheets, just more spreadsheets, and merged them all together. And we try to come up with how we can overcome this, right? And get, how should I say this? It's more of a central database, right? That you can still pull information out in spreadsheets, so you can manipulate it a little bit easier than our ERP system, our PLM system, or in this case, part analytics. So what we do is our PLM system and our ERP system is basically our Bible, right? For engineering documentation, it's a PLM, 100%. We use Arena. I've used Arena for 20 years, but we've used Arena here for about 6 years now. And cleaning that data was something that we had to work on, right? So we were using a file management server to manage all these engineering documentations. So we needed to pull all those in. And then what we did was, and when we acquire a new company, we have 90 days to get them on PLM. So as we go out and look at and have Jesil's group from Part Analytics they run a weekly pull from Arena into Part Analytics. We want to capture any new parts that are on there. So when we go out and bid this stuff in their RFQ module, that we have access to everything that the entire company is producing. Then we layer in a forecast to that, and then Jesil uploads that, and we can quickly come up with an RFQ that we can send out to the channel partners or to our suppliers, right? And then through their RFQ module, right? That's how we kind of administer this. So for us, it eliminates sending spreadsheets out, doing awards separately to all the CMs and all the manufacturers and all the channel partners. We did this seamlessly. We still do download in spreadsheets so we can pivot table and do those things, but we're not manually typing in spreadsheets. We have core databases, and Part Analytics is one of our core databases that we use for the sourcing side of things and the part availability, right? So it's super important and to make sure if you have a PLM system that it aligns to what you're trying to drive to. So I don't know, Jesil, if you have any other comments there, but.
Yeah, I think in general, I think some of the challenges that at Digi you had been facing, and as we see in the poll, right, many of the audience members are facing. It's an industry-wide challenge, right? Not having visibility tier 2 and below, especially when it comes to electronics. So it comes down to Excel. It's not fun, but that's the only way a lot of times, right? And what it comes down to, just to kind of reiterate some of the challenges we see across the industry as well, is there's only so much you can do in Excel. So it limits you lose a lot of time, and with limited resources, there is only so much coverage you can provide when it comes to suppliers and components. So that is one of the challenges. And then it's the lack of real-time data, right? What's happening in the market. As we have been talking, right, in COVID, there were shortages, then it completely turned around where those oversupply. Now we are somewhere in between. So being able to have that real-time data, that not having that, it's quite challenging to be able to respond proactive. So it's challenges in that case, it becomes more reactive, right? So I think those are definitely some of the industry-wide challenges. And I think that's a good segue.
Yeah, I would comment on real-time data. It's super important to get real-time data. You want to make decisions quickly and effectively, right?
Yeah.
And when you're collecting information, it takes weeks to get information. The information is not even valid anymore. So it changes so rapidly. Everyone on this call, if you're in supply chain, purchasing, you receive product, you ship product, it comes in and out every day. Even when I'm talking, we're shipping product out of our warehouse right now. And you have to be able to look at what's happening and what's going on a daily basis. We have daily meetings. We go through this every single day across the entire company, where we're at, what's going on. It's super important. And I think on the cost side, Part Analytics has definitely helped us. I think you guys threw up the new product development. That's our next phase, to be honest with you, because in new product, I mean, we've done a good job on the RFQ side. The part availability is there. The next phase for us is MPI, right? During COVID, we got our engineering teams ended up redesigning a lot of products during COVID and the semiconductor crisis because they had to, right? We needed to keep our customers alive. We had to continue to ship product. So a lot of alternate parts. Now the strategic sourcing team is much more active in the new product development side of things, working with the engineering teams, making sure there's alternates on those designs. So we're not single threaded. Now, obviously there's always going to be components like a processor that's going to be single source, but all the other components, typically we can try to figure out if there's alternates or not, and work with the engineering teams across the globe to ensure. The other thing we're doing is we're taking a look at how can we work cross-functionally. The business units are independent, right? So it becomes very challenging. And the strategic sourcing group, who's led by Greg Snell on the commodity side, he's working on my team. He's working with the business units to collaborate amongst the business units. So just say a higher volume business unit is using a processor, and a lower volume business unit may be looking at a processor. Well, that team then would suggest, why don't you use this processor? We can get economies of scale there. And it's that piece that's super important on the MPI side. And I think these tools like Part Analytics are providing us, gives us that visibility to make really good decisions good decisions and quickly. So
Yeah, and that's one of the great part, like as we have been talking through, right? That's kind of core of our platform, right? Taking data from multiple sources, PLM, which is Bible for engineering, ERP, where there's a lot of the planning data resides, pull that in with market data, and then the data coming in from your contract manufacturers, right? The costed BOMs, component level cost, bill of material level, PCBA level, or assembly level cost, kind of pulling it all together. And that's kind of core of our platform, where we have built it, where it's very easy to pull all that data in. And then on the right side, kind of addressing some of the use cases, right? Starting from new products. So we had recently introduced enterprise parts library, which I think will be pulling in the near future for Digi as well, where again, enabling picking the right parts as early in the design process and giving that collaboration opportunities between engineering and sourcing. And then once it moves to production, then being able to ingest all the data from your contract manufacturers, making sure that they're using the right parts and also getting the best price and sharing that best price with you. And then component negotiations, right? Fully digitized process in the platform. Collaborating internally to pull in all the component level forecast and usage, leveraging your alternates, etc. And then collaborating with the suppliers. We have a supplier portal where they can provide the bids. So really, it's internal and external collaboration. And then providing some risk insights around lead time, life cycle. A lot of it is also based on market data. So a lot of this really pulling in all the data in one place, as Terry, you mentioned, and giving that visibility and then enabling a lot of these use cases so that the teams can really focus on the strategic aspect of it instead of grinding the spreadsheets, right? So that's a big part of the platform.
So for us, the 50% efficiency gains that is on the slide here is coming primarily from supplier negotiations, right? We got time getting this done quickly was the most important thing. We didn't want to pull a bunch of spreadsheets together and then who's building what's the qualifications here, and certain tools aren't as good. I mean, they're pulling information out, right? So what we did here was work with Jesil's team and made sure the arena piece got up into their database so we could do this efficiently and timely. The one thing that I would say, and the second piece there, second and third, really was during the part availability piece. Now the industry has changed quite a bit, but the part availability really helped us, and it helped us achieve our revenue. It helps us hit our customers' demands. During the semiconductor crunch, that those are pretty much behind us now. But so we've really pivoted away because there's only 3 or 4 that we actually have right now. And they're probably self-induced, I should say, those shortages, where we didn't react in time or demand spiked and shortages were created. But that being said, the biggest challenge we have now is the cost piece and getting the RFQ. And we just executed this RFQ, substantial amount of savings in certain spaces, especially. We're working on the implementation of it right now, and it's my team has issued all the awards out. We met with one of the channel partners today. Again, the channel partners are tricky, right? Because you may be dealing with a local channel partner that has a bigger global footprint, and you're doing business in Indonesia, and they're like, well, they're not giving us that price. So you have to almost have if you're dealing globally like Digi is, you have to have a key account manager across the entire channel distribution, and especially if they're global channel partners, to make sure that they're providing that pricing to their respective regions that you're building product in. So it's always been a challenge. And in fact, we had them in today. It's been a challenge for 35 years. I've been in this space. It's the same challenge you exist. And Jesil shaking his head because he knows it's so true. But at the end of the day, those are the obstacles that you have to continue to drive and make sure you get through them and work with the relative channel partners. And then we issue the awards also, not just to the channel partners, but we issue the awards through the portal to our EMS providers, right? So one of the challenges we had during COVID as well was that a lot of our EMS providers, not a lot, but some of them were buying through local channels and they weren't franchised, right? So what happens is when they're not franchised, the semiconductor manufacturers don't recognize the orders, right? So that's the big thing. So my advice to everyone is if they're try to use the franchise distributors as much as possible, because we're hopefully COVID will never happen again, but the global stuff happens all the time, right? So it's important for everyone to make sure that they're using franchise distributors at this point. But I would say those two things are the biggest key that helped transform Digi. The RFQ that we just launched in April, that it's already implemented, saving some dollars, as well as the part availability module that's really helped bring Digi to where we're at today.
So Terry, I'm sorry, Jesil. So Terry, just let me ask, just in terms of maybe expectations of you and your implementation team going in, did you anticipate you were going to see the types of efficiency gains and the speed in which you got it? Did you have lower expectations going in? What was your thinking?
Well, it was a new, especially the RFQ module. It was something new for us. So, Jesil, we worked together, right? There were some challenges in getting data, and some of it was a lot of it was on Digi stuff to make sure we gave them the data the right way. But once that was done, it was pretty seamless. I think the biggest challenge is working with the channel partners or the manufacturers and getting them to recognize we're using this tool. So next time around, it'll be a lot easier for them. You got some of them say, well, we don't use tools like this. Well, yes, you are. That's not true. You are using it. And you need to make sure that you use this tool. Otherwise, you're not going to do business with you. Sometimes you have to be tough with them. But all in all, they all responded, right? Which is super important. And then as we analyze, the analyzation of that data is really cool too inside Part Analytics. You could see what by a product, by a commodity type and all this stuff, you can pull all that stuff down and look at, how's memory doing? Where's memory at versus a year ago, right? So for us, it was super important. So.
Yeah, the reason I asked, just like in our research, we typically will see change management is one of the, the biggest stumbling blocks. People fail to factor that in. In your case, you're dealing with the third parties plus engineers, both pretty difficult groups to kind of
Oh,
make
yeah,
it happen. So, yeah.
It can be, but our engineering
Yep.
team has embraced, the tools as well. So that
Good.
I think there's a lot of selling. It's selling at my level, it's selling at my team's level, going out and making sure that, they see we're adding value, right? So it's not like, most engineering teams, they're just, I'm not criticizing here, but what they want to do is design their product as fast as possible and then
Mhm.
work with product management to get to market. We're designed, our groups are designed where our business unit controls engineering, product management, and sales engineering, right? So those four functions, everything else is pretty much shared services. My whole
Yeah.
team's a shared service. We go across all different business units, and it's important that we work closely with them to ensure that they're getting the optimal price, and then utilizing tools like this to show them that, hey, we are getting the benefit here. Like I said earlier, the biggest piece moving forward is going to be the MPI stuff. That's
Mhm.
where you get the best pricing in MPI, because if you win like a semiconductor, if you can win a socket, right? You tell the semiconductor you're going to win this socket, but you have to do X, Y, and Z. Then you go to a channel partner and work it. That's how we work, because they get design wins off that. A lot
Mhm.
of times, unless they're not, if they're franchised, they may or may not care of who the distributor is. So in general, I think the tools like Part Analytics providing us really gives us great insight into common parts across platforms, basically all the stuff that Digi requires right now.
Excellent. Excellent. Aaron, maybe if we go kind of to the next slide and just kind of wrap up with some of the key takeaways. I know, Terry, you've given a number of them if you've gone through, but for other companies, maybe earlier in their maturation than you are at this stage, any key takeaways you'd share with them?
Well, I think the most important piece is to get your data organized and aligned. Even if you're not even if you don't have a PLM system, or not, or if you do, make sure your data is up to speed. We've worked hard across the entire company for the last 6 years. It's been challenging with engineering to make sure everything they do gets put in Arena. We don't look at it. And the reason why I say that's probably the most important piece, because as Part Analytics pulls that information up, it's accurate information, right? And that weekly pull, it's super accurate. To us, we struggle because you acquire a company, you're going to use Arena. What we use a spreadsheet to emails to manage everything. Our supply base can't build product unless they know what revision they're building, and all that is housed in Arena, right? So, and then when we pull that data up to tools like Part Analytics, the data is clean, it's fresh. They know the revision level of every single part. Everything we're doing sits up from Arena, gets into Part Analytics. So to me, that is the most important thing: accurate and reliable data. And if you can do that, you can pull that up into any system. And we do the same thing with our ERP system. We use spreadsheets, but we don't type in the spreadsheets. We pull data down to the spreadsheets. Our ERP system, our opportunity database, all that stuff sits in our ERP, and we pull all the data down every day. And we look at all of our bookings, shipments, what's shipped, our inventory levels, and we have a meeting, a stand-up every single day with the team. We have 2 stand-ups every day. No, I don't make every single one of them, but I try to make every single one. One strategic sourcing stand-up that review all this RFQ stuff that we're talking about, any escalations that need to be done. How's it going with the implementation of the awards that we did? It's super important that to us, at least to me, that you're being informed of exactly what's going on what's happening. If there's any escalations as it pertains to a booking or anything like that, customer dissatisfaction, it's because it happens and it churns so quickly every day. Stuff's coming in, stuff's going out, orders are changing, orders are increasing, orders are decreasing in certain areas. So it's ever changing, and that's the nature of being in supply chain, I guess. So, but for me, the most important thing is to make sure your data is accurate. And then the rest, and then you can use other systems like part analytics to pull that data up. So.
Yeah, and
And
just to
Jeff-
add to that, Rick, I think what we have seen, so I think Digi, as Terry mentioned, has done a great job pulling everything into Arena as a main for at least the engineering data, right? The reality is not all companies unfortunately have that luxury, and that's what we have seen in our past experiences when I was in engineering and sourcing and with our customer, right? There's and as companies grow, right, with acquisitions, there may be different PLMs, different sources. So that's one of the things we see across our customer base as well, where the data it's not always in one place, so pulling it together, and that's some of the functionalities we have tried to build in is to be able to pull data from many sources, including market and supplier data as well, to kind of give that holistic picture. I think with Digi, we got a really good start with everything in Arena, and then we pulled in supplier and other data and got us going. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
one thing to
I would
keep.
say just to tack on to what Jesil's saying. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't it wasn't necessarily easy to get everything in Arena and convince new acquisitions and everything that how important it is to get it in there. But we have a rule now. If it's a smaller acquisition, it's 90 days. In 90 days, it's an Arena. If it's a little bit larger and they have a lot of components, it's probably closer to 6 months. It really depends on the size of the acquisition. But we do it. We do it. We have a team like on one of my org charts. The engineering services team is responsible for ensuring that everything gets in Arena, and then you get visibility to it all. If you have different systems, it becomes super difficult. You don't get visibility. You have to merge spreadsheets together and then send them to Jesil and then try to figure out what's going on. Being on one PLM and one ERP is one PLM across the entire company. We're actually on but we have primarily have one ERP system as well. So for me, that's the most important.
So Terry, you bring up a great point, and it's certainly, having the 100-day plan is probably fairly common with the larger organizations who've gone through a lot of M&A work, but for the smaller organizations who maybe haven't started their M&A cycle, having that upfront, here's what we're going to do when we bring in a company, that blueprint, that playbook, how are we going to integrate right away? That's a great kind of takeaway, even if you haven't gone through the M&A cycles like you have. So
yeah, I would. That's a good point, Richard. I would 100% agree with you. I think it's important that how are you going to, if you do end up acquiring someone, how are you going to integrate? Integration is so important. And all in all, we've done a pretty good job integrating the business units. So a lot of times the business side of things are freestanding, right? So the Open Gear is still a business that runs the sales and marketing, and they have manufacturing in Sandy, Utah. So we do build product there. But that group reports into me on the supply chain manufacturing side, right? And we were able to get on calls, very good group. We worked through all the issues. They had supply chain issues just like everyone else did, during COVID, and we were able to collectively help resolve the issues, So, but data integrity is not just the data, but data integrity is super important,
Well, Terry, I really appreciate, and I'm sure the audience does, the level of expertise that you share today with your story. And then I know it's an ongoing story.
Yeah, it's an evolution. It's
an
not
evolution.
it's not a one and done type thing. It's an evolution for sure. So
Right. And Jesil, thank you for also sharing kind of your experience, both, with Digi and with the other companies that you're working with, as you explore improvements in similar fashion. Aaron, I don't know if there's any Q&A in the hopper. We've got a little bit of time for Q&A.
Yeah, we'll leave it open to Q&A right now. There are no open questions coming in yet, but all attendees, please feel free. Any questions that you think would be applicable, please send them our way. If not, I think Rick, you had a couple questions that we had discussed as well. If you want to
Yeah,
start off,
yeah,
maybe.
we probably hit on a few of them, but maybe just in terms of you might have hit these already, but just to recap, what would you say, Terry, some of the challenges you did have just kind of getting the engineering and the supply chain teams aligned just in terms of this transformation process you've gone through?
Well, the engineering, it's a tricky group, right? Because they are all over the globe, and we do travel. We have the supply chain team. We have somebody in Singapore. We have contractors as well, and at certain sites because we don't have an entity in certain regions. So, but we do hire contractors to help support both manufacturing and some of the engineering sites on my team directly. They're not full-time people, they're contractors, but we do have some in Singapore that help support both manufacturing as well as the engineering sites. But I would say the challenges that we have, there weren't that many on the engineering side, really. Again, they all use Arena. So that's the beauty behind it. So if it's inaccurate and it's in Arena and they mess up, it's their fault. 100%. Right. So our suppliers use this to build the product, right? That's the most important thing. And then we take that data and push it, or Jesil pulls it up to part analytics so we can analyze the information, right? And that's the value. The engineers don't use part analytics as much, the strategic sourcing folks do, but we communicate with the engineering groups, where the pricing is going. And we also used it during the semiconductor crisis. That's when they saw the tool really helpful because, they may or may not needed to redesign stuff because the part availability, we were able to find the parts using the part availability module. We were able to find the parts. So they were looking at maybe I have to redesign this whole product because they couldn't get the processor or they couldn't get this device, and they then didn't have to do that any longer, right? In some cases, we couldn't get them regardless of the part availability module. There was zero in the marketplace, and a lot of this was, I think it's working with the engineering teams. Digi historically, I would say, we're getting better at this, but so we design products. Some of our products, literally, we still ship today, are 25 years old. Those components are very hard to get. So it's looking at how can we refresh our product line in an industrial IoT companies, right? Industrial in general, industrial and medical for the most part, they never want to change ever. They want to keep using the same piece over and over again. They don't want to change because they have to qualify it all over again, especially on the medical side. So a lot of times they're using super old technology. So for us, it's kind of revisiting with strategic sourcing and in the engineering groups, probably every 5 to 7 years, and saying, you should probably consider maybe sliding in a redesign on this product if it's going to be around for a while, because it's super important that they do that. They got to stay up with the semiconductor technology, because how we got burnt the most is that legacy stuff, that stuff that's 25, 15 years old that we kept building and we couldn't get it, and they weren't going to produce it. So we couldn't find those parts. They were not available. So we were forced to do a lot of redesign, and literally for 18 months, a lot of our engineering teams just were redesigning stuff just to keep our revenue and our customers alive, right? And then now there's a lot of MPI. That's why the MPI tool in part analytics is so how we want to be able to use that and communicate to the engineering teams, because now they're going like gangbusters on designing new products. So
Gotcha. Thank
Hopefully that
you
makes
for the
sense.
context.
Yep.
Jesil, maybe just one last question for you, just in terms of.
Sorry, Rick, we did have one question actually come in.
Oh.
For this, another question for Terry, real quick. So what was important to you to demonstrate, really to management and committees and buying committees as you evaluated part analytics or any other tool? Right?
Yeah, that's fair. So anything we do, first, I'll first start over. We have IT steering committee. Any software that we buy that's substantial in value, or pretty much any software that we need to pay for, it has to go through that IT steering committee, right? And I'm on that committee with all the executives, all the BU leaders. And we put a proposal together and say, we need this tool because of X, Y, and Z, right? And that's what we did. We were using a different tool. We weren't using it very well when we selected part analytics. So we were using a standardized engineering database tool. But what part analytics brought to us is that same engineering database, but other supply chain oriented things that really helped us. Not just with the engineering database, like alternate parts and all that stuff. There's systems out there that can do that, but it was really the one system that merges both things together that really helped us look at part availability, RFQ process, all this other things that we can do, as well as do the engineering database side. So for us, that was the key. Do you have to go sell it? Yes, we have to get up in front of it, the executives and everyone on that IT steering committee, which is all the BU leaders, CEO, the CFO, including myself, and and they'll poke holes in it, and that's all good. It makes a good process, right? So at the end, we were able to get this one passed because we were using a different tool, and this was 3 years ago, Jesil, more than 3 years ago now.
That's right. Yeah, 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 4 years ago. So, we were able to sell the steering committee that this is the right path, this is what we want, and we're gonna not renew the old tool and continue to use a new tool. So, and we're still using it.
Excellent.
Excellent. Jesil, just final closing question. Hackett does, and our client members cover a lot of different industries, but just, for your solution, would you say what's kind of your sweet spot for some of the industries that fit best for your solution?
Yeah, I think great question, Rick. So I think what we have seen is a lot of industrial manufacturing, medical devices, aerospace. I think at the end we have varying range of customers, right? All the way from consumer products all the way to industrial side. Really what it comes down to is any company that has a lot of electronics or substantial amount of electronics that they use in their products and similar challenges, right? Multiple data sources, costed bombs coming into from multiple contract manufacturers. So really pulling it together. So any company that has similar challenges with substantial electronic spend where they're not buying it themselves would be an ideal place to be. I see there is a question around C-bombs since I was talking. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that we pride ourselves, right? That there's a lot of automation around ingesting data from all these different sources, and a lot of times our customers are pleasantly surprised that how fast things come in, and then it's automated. It's plug and play. A lot of these things. So even Arena, as Terry was mentioning, right? We are integrated with Arena, so it's every week it just refreshes on its own. So a lot of automation to pull this data in.
Yeah. Well,
on that note, Terry, can you comment real quick on that note too, just how effective part analytics was at processing C-bombs and just kind of simplifying that?
Well, I think you guys did it. I mean, Jesil could comment closer. I'm not as close to it as actually pulling the data and how fast it can be done. But I would say it was done in a couple of weeks. It didn't take very long. And we have, we have 1,000 SKUs across all these BUs. So there's 1,000 bill of materials, over 12,000 different parts. All right, I think between 12 and 15,000 components, caps, resistors, all this stuff, semiconductors, even sheet metal, plastics, injection molded, all that. When we bid this, we bid everything out, not just electronic components. I think it was only a few weeks, Jesil. You can comment a little bit more.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty quick. Yeah, a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Excellent. I know we're coming up on time. I do want to thank the audience who joined today. So thanks so much for the folks who participated. Terry, thank you for taking time to, again, walk us through your story. Jesil, for all your commentary and expertise. So on behalf of all of our organizations, thanks to everyone today, and have a pleasant evening.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Terry.
Appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Terry.